I'm Leslie, manager here at Agave Farms, and I wanted to go over some cool gardening tips today that will help you be successful. Today we're going to be working in the Armenian cucumber bed. This is one of the easiest and most successful crops to grow here in the hot summers. I wanted to show you first off the bird netting here that I have surrounding my raised beds to keep the birds out so that they can't harvest before we do. So what we'll do to start is just lift up the bird netting. And as you can see, these grow extremely fast and they're very strong, so they have attached themselves to my netting. So we're going to just work with it and pull it up as best we can with the weight of the cucumber on it. And today's lesson is going to be how to prune these cucumbers so that we can yield more cucumber and have less foliage. So now that I've given myself access to get in, as you can see, this is a raised bed, 2 pieces high. They don't need much root space. However, they need a lot of space to grow. They are very rapidly growing and spreading. This was just planted, I'm gonna say, a little over 2 months ago, so first week of May. And as you can see, this has overtaken the whole bed, and I've already done a harvest. We do a harvest once a week with at least 10 cucumbers a week. Okay, so I've already built a semi-good structure here, but now I need more space. So what we're gonna do instead of using the bamboo stake today is something very easy for everybody to use. I know these are sometimes hard to find. Okay, so I just wanted to show you up close what this first structure is. It's basically just bamboo stakes that I put here when I first planted, actually about 2 to 3 weeks after when the plant started to grow a little bit big. I built this so that they'd have something to grow and attach onto. It's 2 bamboo stakes. One is placed into the dirt diagonally and going up to the shaded structure up here, and the other is placed on the opposite end and not all the way up, about 1/4 of the way up, and I tied it here in the middle to secure it with some green garden tape that you can also find at any hardware store. And this is going to become very needy for you during your season growing cucumbers. It's almost a must to keep them staked and tied up. So I'm going to go now show you how we're going to do the other trellis, because as you can see, this one is not enough space. The cucumbers have taken over pretty wildly. They're now growing up the sides of the bird netting here because they want more space, which this isn't terrible. However, it's defeating the purpose of the bird netting because now the birds can get my cucumbers from the outside of the netting. So we want our plants to come this way. Okay, so now we are on the opposite side of the raised bed where the stake is needed the most. This is actually going to be considered more of a trellis than a stake. Stakes are just one piece of bamboo or metal or whatever it is that you use like this. That's considered a stake. When you're having something curve over your entire garden bed, that's considered more of a trellis, just so you understand the difference. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to place it to the furthest end of the bed that I can reach it. And I'm going to grab this end that's closest to me, and I'm just going to flex it in an upward motion like that. And this is going to go into the soil. This is just a standard PVC pipe that you can find at Home Depot or Lowe's or wherever you shop for hardware. And they're very flexible and they're very durable. And we're going to use a pretty long one here because I've got a pretty big space to cover. And I'm going to just press it down until I can't press anymore so that it stays firm in there. Okay, and then I'm just going to pack the soil down around the base of it to hold it in. Okay, now that we have the PVC pipe placed into the dirt on both ends, we're going to be ready for the next step. And as you can see now, I have this bamboo stake in here already. Now, if you didn't have this in here already, it would be up to you whether or not you could do one more. The same identical PVC pipe placed on the opposite end. That's going to allow more trellising space and more security here. But I don't need to do that because I've already got a bamboo stake here. So you may want to take that into consideration. If you're wanting to do this type of trellis, you're going to want 2 pieces, not 1. You'll want to do it on the opposite end as well. So I'm going to put a piece of tape here to secure it in. because there's going to be a lot of weight on this. These Armenian cucumbers can get up to about 10 pounds, but the average one is about 2 to 3 pounds. So I'm going to take my glove off just because it's easier for me to tie. And you're going to go around it, both pieces, a couple of times until you feel like it's tight enough, and tie a real good knot there. All right, then she's ready to go. Now the next step is to try to train this vine to grow up it. So I'm going to come back over here where I have the problem children growing, and these are the ones I removed from the bird netting. They kind of fell off naturally actually when I lifted this bird netting up. That's where we're going to start, okay? It doesn't really matter where or which direction you start, as long as you get most of the foliage that's overgrowing onto the ground, onto the trellis. Because nature will take its course and it will naturally start to grow and wrap itself around this trellis. But the key is you have to train it to do so, because right now it doesn't know how to do that. So as you can see, I'm kind of curling it around, spiraling it around the trellis. And don't feel bad if you break a leaf. These things are strong as nails and that does not harm it at all. And actually it's more beneficial to remove any damaged leaves, foliage like this, because it slows down the production of fruiting when you have damaged leaves. So as you're going, if you see any damaged foliage, grab your clipper and remove that. All right, after you've got it wound up pretty good here, you're gonna grab your green tie tape that I showed you before, and you're gonna tie it on there so that it won't move. And this stuff is real flexible and it will not harm the plant. And it tears off very easily, so you don't even need scissors to rip it. So I usually tie mine right where I started, right where the plant is touching the PVC. I wrap it around 2 times, kind of loose though. You don't want to do too tight because it will cut off the circulation to the plant. That is what we don't want to happen. It's just like if you have a rubber band around your wrist for too tight, it doesn't feel good, it cuts off your circulation. Same thing happens with plants. All right, so now we're gonna tie this end. You don't want to tie the leaves, only the stem. Leave a little room for it to breathe. Okay, now that part's done. And now we're gonna just continue to do this until most of this is growing on the vine, on the trellis, and up off of the ground. Then when we come and do our harvest, we'll have cucumbers hanging down from the center of the trellis, which is not only beautiful, but easier for us to access. Also, I know it may look a little tangled up down here, which it very much so is. I just wanted to let you know not to be alarmed or feel skeptical when you're doing this, because as I said before, these plants grow very, very fast. And if you don't do this at a very early age, it will become tangled and just grow everywhere. This started out with 10 seeds, Armenian organic cucumber seeds, non-GMO, that I had saved from last year's crop. And there's only 10 plants, and as you can see, they've just become very intertwined with each other, and it's normal for them to do that. So we're just trying to make it a little easier to harvest. Also, the benefit of doing this is it keeps the plants and the foliage off of the ground, which decreases the chances of it getting pest or insect and disease. A lot of times the insects are down in the foliage. A lot of times the foliage stays too moist, especially in the summertime. We're having to water more and more, and that can create problems and disease on our foliage and on our cucumbers. If they're up and raised off the ground, then this decreases the chance of that happening. So it's very important to do this, and it's highly recommended. You'll be happier as a gardener with your outcome if you trellis your cucumber plants. And like I said before, don't feel alarmed if it's tangled, because it very much so is tangled, and you just got to kind of work with it. And gardening is never perfect. It's never going to look perfect. It's never going to be as easy as we want it to be, but that's the joy of it. And we just do the best we can. So like I said, it's very also important. It's one of the biggest things that I can always suggest in doing is removing dead, tired foliage or damaged foliage from pests or from not getting enough sunlight. Also, something I should cover is this increases the sunlight that's allowing to go into the plant. So now all of these branches below are now visible to the sun, which increases the strength, and the nutrition is going to go up in the cucumber, more so than laying down on the cold, dark ground. And this, as you can see, is not a cucumber plant. This is a marigold flower. And these are planted here because this helps keep bugs out of the garden. It's a natural and organic pesticide, and I could not recommend this more to you. They're super easy to care for. They are very easy to reseed. And these are the seeds here inside. You're going to simply break open the dried flower, pull it apart. All of these little pieces here that are dark colored are seeds. So you just would either save them, plant them elsewhere, or you can sprinkle them right back into the ground so that when this plant dries up and dies off, it will already have new plants generating below it. And as you can see, that's quite a few seeds in just one little flower. So when you're trimming the damaged foliage, I want to show you an example. This is yellowing, and it has some brown and some tears in it. Now we want to remove this because we don't want the plant to waste a lot of energy trying to heal it. So once you remove this, now all of the energy is forced to the production of the plant, which is going to be producing cucumbers. So all the foliage should come off that looks similar to this. I was just pulling away some of the branches and the vine that is growing into my tomato bed and trying to get it and encourage it to stay on its trellis and out of the tomato bed, because these are so powerful. They could wrap themselves around our tomato plants, and we don't want that to happen. We would like them to stay over here and allow the tomatoes to have their own space over there. So what I'm doing is just encouraging those pieces that were going that way to grow back up this way. Once they meet the middle, they can start to cycle down. And it all will be kind of tangled together, but that's not going to matter when we're harvesting 10 to 20 cucumbers a week. I think that pretty much covers it, but the important thing is to remember that you do secure your pieces when you're tying, and be patient and allow them to kind of do what they want. However, at least daily, every other day, come out and check on them, because as you can see, if you let it go too far, you'll have quite a mess pretty fast. So it's important to go out there and maintain the garden, keep things tied up, and remove damaged foliage. And harvest, because if you don't harvest these cucumbers, when they're about this big, this is how I prefer them. They're sweet, they're crunchy, they're delicious, they're very, very nutritious. They're also hydrating in the summertime. It's actually a cross between a melon and a cucumber, so they're very sweet. I've heard people say that it reminds them of eating watermelon. You can slice it and put it in water. You can slice it up and throw it in your salad. You can eat it by itself as a snack. And then always remember to save the seeds. They dry up very easily. You can preserve them and save them for next year, or you can plant them right now. You can plant all the way up through August on your Armenian cucumber. Okay, so I just wanted to show you real quick the size when they are going to be ready is right about here. This is my preference. A little bit larger is not bad either, but I wouldn't let it get much bigger than this. We do have some pretty nice thick ones here. As you can see, this is much larger in width, and now I think it's grown to its capacity of width. But if we allow this to stay on the vine and grow any more than it already has, it can get up to about this long, which is massive. Then what happens is it turns firmer and the seeds grow very large, which are not too great to eat. They taste a little different, and it reminds you more of a squash than it does a cucumber, which is not preferable. We're growing them to taste the cucumber taste. So the preferable way and the preferable size is right over here, like this one here, and you just simply clip it right where it's attached. And it doesn't matter if there's a little piece of the vine here on it, that can be just clipped off when you're ready to eat it. And this is going to be very, very sweet at this size, and very, very, very crunchy and delicious. So don't be alarmed though if you come out and there's some hidden in your vines that you forgot to harvest before they got monsters. You can always juice them, you can slice them and put them in water. There's definitely many uses for them. If you have chickens, chickens love them. I freeze them for the chickens and use them as a treat to cool them down and hydrate them, and they feel so happy when I do that. Okay, and I did want to mention I am noticing a little bit of aphid damage, which is very common, especially in our Sonoran desert. They love squash, they love melons, and they love cucumber plants. And if you're organic and you're gardening, there's not really any way to prevent them. As you can see, these leaves are abnormal. There's a lot of curling, and there's a lot going on just with the shape of the leaf. It's wilted, and this is caused from something called aphids, and aphids are very common. It is a tiny little bug. Those little tiny yellow things here are what aphids are. Sometimes they look different. They vary in color. They get much larger as they get mature. But you want to catch them when they're tiny like this so that we can control them. And I want to tell you that there's a very awesome way, an organic way that's very, very, very successful, and it's just Dawn dish soap. And it's the blue colored Dawn dish soap. It actually says environmentally safe on the bottle. It's important to get the blue one. It's not scented. There's nothing in it that can harm the earth. It's all biodegradable. What you'll do is you'll put that in a spray bottle, a couple of drops in a spray bottle with water, and you'll spray the areas that are affected by aphids, anything with curly leaves, or you can see the actual aphids on them. You'll spray the soapy water on them, and it will control them very effectively. Okay, so we're pretty much finished up in the cucumber bed for the day. We're gonna let it do its thing and grow over the trellis. Now what we need to do is put the bird netting back down. I hope you've learned a lot today, and we hope that you will like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more useful gardening tips.